a frantic 911 call reporting a 3-year-old girl kidnapped at gunpoint. An Amber Alert sent across state lines. But within hours, police realized something didn't add up. The mother's story was falling apart. How did investigators uncover the horrifying truth behind Nola Dinkins' disappearance? This wasn't a kidnapping, it was a murder, and the killer was hiding in plain sight. The mother ran to police in Delaware on July 2, 2022, claiming strangers had taken her daughter Nola at gunpoint. Officers described her as visibly upset, saying the abduction happened in Maryland at a Royal Farms gas station. Within minutes, an Amber Alert spread across Maryland and Delaware, putting law enforcement on high alert. Multiple agencies joined the search for the described suspect, a black male wearing dark clothing driving a silver minivan. But detectives quickly noticed problems with the mother's story. When they interviewed potential witnesses at the Royal Farms location, nobody reported seeing any disturbance. Security cameras showed no evidence of the described minivan or armed suspect. The alleged abduction site also raised suspicions. Why would kidnappers strike at a busy gas station in broad daylight? Another red flag emerged when officers realized the mother had filed the report in Delaware, nearly 100 miles from where she claimed the crime occurred. Police grew more suspicious when the mother changed details about her daughter's disappearance. Her initial description of the kidnapper's vehicle didn't match subsequent statements. She claimed the abduction happened around 1:30 p.m., but her timeline didn't hold up under scrutiny. Investigators also found it odd that she remained calm for hours before reporting her daughter missing, behavior that didn't match a parent whose child had just been violently taken. Within 12 hours of the Amber Alert being issued, the story completely collapsed. Police traced the mother's movements through surveillance footage and phone records. They saw she had visited her boyfriend Cedrick Britten's house earlier that day, but Nola never left the property. Officers obtained security video showing the mother entering and leaving the boyfriend's home alone around the time of the alleged kidnapping. By July 3rd, the investigation had shifted from a missing child case to a homicide. Detectives spoke again with the mother, who finally admitted she had lied about the kidnapping. Police learned she had last seen Nola alive at Britten's house the night before reporting her missing. The mother's conflicting stories and the lack of evidence supporting her kidnapping claim pointed investigators toward only one conclusion: no stranger had taken Nola. The truth appeared far more disturbing, with the answers lying inside that house where the little girl was last seen alive. Officers prepared to search the boyfriend's residence, knowing whatever they found would explain what really happened to 3-year-old Nola Dinkins. When police arrived at Cedrick Britten's Elk Nest Drive home in Maryland, they immediately sensed something was wrong. Britten showed no reaction when told about Nola's supposed kidnapping. No panic, no urgency. His demeanor remained completely neutral, which struck investigators as bizarre for someone connected to a missing child case. This detachment became the first red flag in what would soon unravel as a gruesome crime scene. Britten tried to explain his cold demeanor by claiming special forces experience, telling officers he had worked in anti-human trafficking units. But investigators quickly noticed inconsistencies in his military stories. His alleged background didn't match any verifiable records, and his attempt to position himself as an expert seemed like a calculated move to deflect suspicion rather than help find Nola. The scent of cleaning products hit officers as soon as they entered the house. A strong odor of bleach permeated the air, suggesting someone had recently scrubbed the premises. In the trash cans, police found multiple pairs of nitrile gloves, the kind often used to avoid leaving fingerprints or DNA evidence. Upstairs in the room where Nola had stayed with her mother, another pair of discarded gloves lay in the garbage. The excessive cleaning efforts pointed to someone trying to cover up evidence of violence. Security cameras outside Britten's home showed crucial footage. The video captured Nola's mother, Darrian Randle, leaving the property alone on July 2nd. No sign of Nola with her. This directly contradicted the mother's kidnapping story, which claimed strangers took Nola from a gas station that same day. Investigators now had proof no abduction occurred and that Nola never left Britten's home alive. In Britten's car, police made another disturbing discovery. The trunk contained a child-sized blanket with reddish-brown stains consistent with blood. When questioned, Britten offered a suspicious explanation. He claimed a stranger gave him the blanket during an encounter in a park months earlier. The timing and implausibility of this story further damaged his credibility. Britten's behavior regarding the home surveillance footage raised more alarms. He struggled to access the video when police requested it, claiming some cameras weren't working properly. This reluctance to provide evidence suggested he knew the footage would undermine his version of events. The eventual viewing confirmed investigators' suspicions. The cameras showed Randle leaving alone, with no sign of Nola after that morning. Between the bleach smell, discarded gloves, blood-stained blanket, and contradictory security footage, police now had overwhelming evidence pointing to a homicide. A kidnapping story had completely fallen apart, replaced by signs of a violent crime and cover-up occurring inside Britten's home. Investigators shifted focus to reconstructing Nola's final hours and determining exactly what transpired in that house before her tiny body ended up wrapped in plastic and discarded like trash. Every piece of evidence painted a darker picture, one where the people closest to Nola were responsible for her horrific fate. The mother's confession revealed the horrifying truth about Nola's final hours. Darrian Randle admitted to beating her 3-year-old daughter with a belt approximately 15 to 20 times on the night of June 9, 2025. The assault was so violent that Nola collapsed and stopped breathing. Instead of calling for help, Randle shouted for her boyfriend Cedrick Britten, who attempted CPR, but it was too late. At that moment, the couple faced a choice: report the tragedy or conceal it. They chose the latter. Britten and Randle began their cover-up immediately. They placed Nola's limp body in Britten's BMW and drove around for an unknown period before returning to the house on Elk Nest Drive. There, they wrapped the little girl's remains tightly in saran wrap, a deliberate attempt to contain any forensic evidence. They then stuffed her body into a suitcase and left it on the basement steps overnight. Randle admitted she checked on it once during the night, a disturbing detail that suggests some lingering awareness of what they had done. The next day, Britten disposed of the suitcase in a vacant lot on Dune Drive. When authorities found Nola's remains, the scene was even more disturbing than they anticipated. The child was still encased in saran wrap, her tiny body described as consistent with an emaciated child. This single observation hinted at prolonged suffering before her death. The medical examiner would later confirm signs of malnutrition, raising questions about whether Nola had endured neglect long before the fatal beating. The plastic she was wrapped in wasn't just for concealment. It was a calculated move to slow decomposition and reduce the chance of discovery. The couple's actions after the murder painted a clear picture of their priorities. Rather than panic or grief, they showed cold, methodical planning. The disposal of Nola's body wasn't rushed. They waited overnight before moving the suitcase. The choice of saran wrap indicated an understanding of how to evade forensic detection. Even Randle's initial kidnapping story, carefully crafted to misdirect investigators, demonstrated a disturbing level of control in the aftermath of violence. Police also uncovered signs of prior abuse. Bruising consistent with repeated strikes appeared on Nola's body, suggesting the belt beating wasn't an isolated incident. The fact that she was emaciated pointed to neglect that may have gone on for weeks or months. These details turned the case from a tragic act of violence into something even darker, a pattern of cruelty that escalated until it ended a defenseless child's life. As prosecutors reviewed the evidence, they built a case that would hold both Randle and Britten accountable, not just for murder, but for the systemic abuse that led to it. The legal battle ahead would force a reckoning not only for the couple, but for the systems that failed to protect Nola while she was alive. The custody battle in Indiana revealed troubling patterns long before Nola's death. Court records showed Darrian Randle and Nola's father had been locked in a paternity case since 2022. In January 2025, Randle filed notice to relocate with Nola to Maryland, but the father fought to keep his daughter in Indiana. A judge ultimately ruled against the move in March 2025, ordering Randle and Nola to remain in the state. The mediated agreement included scheduled visitations, with Nola set to spend 4 weeks that summer with her father. This court order should have been Nola's lifeline. Instead, it became the backdrop to her isolation. Randle violated the agreement almost immediately, secretly moving to Maryland with Nola sometime after March. The illegal relocation severed Nola's connection to her paternal family and any oversight from Indiana courts. Investigators later learned neighbors in Maryland rarely saw the little girl, suggesting she was kept hidden. The father's family grew increasingly concerned when they lost contact, but without knowing Randle's location, they had limited recourse. The system offered no mechanism to track Nola once her mother crossed state lines. The timing of the murder carries disturbing significance. Nola was killed just days before her scheduled summer visitation with her father in July 2025. This wasn't random coincidence. It suggests Randle may have acted to prevent the court-ordered custody exchange. Investigators noted Nola appeared emaciated when found, indicating prolonged neglect that went unchecked in Maryland. Yet Child Protective Services had no prior involvement, raising questions about why no one reported concerns. Randle's manipulation of systems meant to protect children reached its darkest point with the bogus Amber Alert. She weaponized the emergency response system, sending law enforcement on a wild goose chase while Nola's body sat wrapped in plastic. The deception bought her time, but also exposed how easily urgent safeguards can be exploited by those harming children. The case highlights critical failures at every level. Indiana courts issued orders without enforcement power across state lines. Maryland systems failed to notice an underway child who never appeared in public. The Amber Alert protocol lacked safeguards against fraudulent reports. Each layer that should have protected Nola instead became another gap she fell through. As prosecutors prepared charges against Randle and Britten, Nola's paternal family grappled with unanswered questions. The father had been days away from seeing his daughter through legal channels when she vanished. His grandmother described the family as heartbroken, a sentiment underscoring how court systems often fail non-custodial parents fighting for their children. The legal process would eventually hold Randle and Britten accountable, but no trial could answer why multiple systems designed to prevent such tragedies didn't intervene sooner. The paperwork existed, the protection didn't. Nola's case shows how easily systems fail children. Courts issued orders that weren't enforced. Relocation laws let her disappear across state lines. Neighbors saw nothing or said nothing. The very systems meant to protect her instead created gaps where abuse thrived. Randle and Britten will face trial, but no verdict will undo what happened to Nola. Her death exposes a hard truth. Child abuse often happens in plain sight. Unexplained bruises, sudden weight loss, or a child who vanishes from school records. These are red flags. You don't need proof, just reasonable suspicion. Every state has a child abuse hotline. One call could stop another tragedy. Be the person who speaks up.